Today's date is September 18th, 2020, and wait a minute, we're not in our home state of Ohio, are we? Well, the answer is no. That is because a friend of mine, BuckeyeNationRailroader, invited me to go on a trip with him to Altoona, Pennsylvania, and some other well-known hotspots in the state. After the long drive that we took to get up here, and after checking into our hotel, we then moved a short distance away to the Altoona Amtrak station to watch the nightly action. And not long after we got there, we saw our first train, which was a Norfolk Southern eastbound intermodal train after it descended the hill into Altoona.
That's basically, you'll see intermodal after intermodal on a basis.
After that intermodal train cleared, another eastbound intermodal train slowly makes its way through the Amtrak station on the NS Pittsburgh line. And as a side note, we will never leave this line because a lot of the places we go to are along the NS Pittsburgh line. Our third train of the day also happens to be an eastbound intermodal train as it slowly makes its way through the Amtrak station, with an EMD SD70 ACC rebuild on the point of this train. What we're about to see here is a very common sight on the NS Pittsburgh line, manned helpers, utilizing rebuilt EMD SC-70 ACUs. Here's a set coming down the hill past the Amtrak station back to base to wait to push another train up the hill, and the crew is pretty friendly as well.
You said you wanted a helper set. Well, there you go.
As the helper set was slowly making its way back to base, Norfolk Southern decided to send a westbound mixed freight train through the well-lit night skies of downtown Altoona. This mixed freight train happened to be a big one tonight because coming up here was its set of mid-train DPUs, a C44-9W and an ES44DC pushing in the middle. As we see here, I guess this train was big enough to have both mid-train DPUs and a manned helper set here in the middle and on the back. The next train on our bucket list was a Norfolk Southern eastbound mixed freight train as it slowly makes its way down the hill past the Amtrak station. We watched this train go past Horseshoe Curve on the virtual Railfan webcam and had quite the consist, but I'll list the locomotives here in a second as they pass. Our final train of the night is a Norfolk Southern eastbound autorag train. Even though this was our final train of the night, this, my friends, was just the beginning of our trip. the next day, on September 19th, the day came when we made our way down to Horseshoe Curve. And I gotta say, it's a beautiful sight to see. No matter how many videos or pictures you see of this place, you'll never truly understand the beauty unless you come yourself one day. And also, by the way, since this part's pretty long, I'll narrate the parts that I only feel like that's necessary. Anyways, enjoy the show for this part. While we were still at the bottom paying entry to get into the Horseshoe Curve Rail Park, a Norfolk Southern eastbound mixed freight train makes its way down the hill and passes Horseshoe Curve from below. Here's your DPU for this train. Action was pretty much quiet for a good long while before our next train comes into view, which is a Norfolk Southern westbound intermodal train as it climbs the hill past Horseshoe Curve. And I gotta say, a lot of the crews when they pass Horseshoe Curve, they're pretty friendly, that's for sure.
got another train coming around the curve here, guys.
As action was starting to pick up, as you see here, this part turns into a meet when two Norfolk Southern intermodal trains met here at Horseshoe Curve, one going eastbound, one going westbound. While standing next to the XPRR GP9, these two intermodal trains meet here, one going up, one going down.
Starting.
As you see here, the trains keep coming and coming and coming and coming. This next one, as we see here, is a Norfolk Southern westbound trash train as he smokes his way up the hill past Horseshoe Curve. I also thought it was a good idea to put my COVID mask up, not only to protect myself from germs, but the smell of the trash train as he passes.
Here's the front, guys. And here's the rest of it.
Here we can see the helper set pushing the train up the hill as he passes Horseshoe Curve. The crew aboard the helper set was also pretty friendly as well, blowing the horn at us as he passes. leaving Horseshoe Curve and driving past the Juniata Shops, we then relocated to the Altoona Amtrak station. But I had to bail out of the car because this Norfolk Southern westbound intermodal train was right there. I got it on video, but just barely. After the intermodal train passed, Norfolk Southern Manifest Train 35A also makes its way west through the Amtrak station. We heard about this train non-stop at Horseshoe Curve because of the two trailing BNSF locomotives on the train. .35A was also a big freight train today, because here we can see an SD70 ACU pushing in the middle. But this is a run-of-the-mill SD70 ACU, not a helper-equipped one. .35A was also big enough to have a manned helper on the back, but this was a helper-equipped SD70 ACU pushing on the back. As we're seeing here, we also see an eastbound mixed freight train as it went down the hill past the Amtrak station. This train was also a big one because the mid-train DPUs are coming up here right now. also witnessing precision scheduled railroading because this train was not just a manifest train. Behind the mid-train DPUs was a crap ton of these gondolas carrying slab iron. Once 5:30 rolled around, for Altoona area rail fans, you know what this means. It's Amtrak time, because the Amtrak Pennsylvanian was coming in for its routine stop here at Altoona. After sitting in the station between 5 and 10 minutes, the Amtrak Pennsylvanian smoked his way out of the station to continue his way westbound. After 23M's helper units passed the station, there was a big delay in traffic. Unfortunately, though, the reason why, from what we've heard, a Norfolk Southern train struck a pedestrian. So, I don't know who this person was, but if this was the case, to the family of this person, I'm really sorry for your loss, and I really hope things get better for you. Not too terribly long after dark, and after that accident was cleared, Norfolk Southern decided to continue to send trains up and down this line, and it was basically like opening the floodgates.
He's stopping.
As trains begin to pour in from both directions here on the Pittsburgh line, here we see a Norfolk Southern westbound mixed freight train as he slowly makes his way past the station. He stopped at the signals just short of the station because the dispatcher wanted to clear up some eastbounds first that were higher priority, so they decided to hold him here.
Sounds like another train's coming behind this one, guys. Yep.
After that eastbound intermodal train cleared, the westbound began moving again, and I decided to move to the pedestrian bridge that's just over the station to watch the pusher set come up here. Here was a perfect result of the delay that happened several hours earlier. Here we see a Norfolk Southern westbound coal train as it slowly makes its way through the station. And as I pan the camera to pass the locomotives, you'll see why I say this is a perfect result of the delay. Did you see that light right there? Yes, another train is coming, which was a Norfolk Southern eastbound intermodal train led by a helper set. The helper set was actually leading the train, and it was in front of the primary power.
Virginia might be behind this one. Yes, it is. They skumped us. don't know what else to say here, guys. We couldn't see it that well, so yeah.
I didn't bother filming the ends of the trains in the three-way meet because the Virginian snuck his way through the middle between the two trains, which was a little bit of a disappointment. Anyways, after that three-way meet, a solo Norfolk Southern SD70 ACU, a helper-equipped one, made his way down the hill back to base, and I have reason to believe this was the one that pushed 35A up the hill. Our final train of the day was Norfolk Southern Manifest Train 34A as it made its way westbound. The crew aboard the train was really friendly, and NS 1068, the Erie Heritage Unit, was trailing second on this train. On the third day of our trip, September 20th, we checked out of our hotel and hit the road. Our first stop was the Norfolk Southern Juniata Shops here at Altoona by the turntable to see the power that we saw last night that we couldn't see too well. And what you're about to see here is a slideshow of the most interesting power that we can see here. After looking around the shops, we then made our way to the Amtrak station one more time. Here we see a Norfolk Southern eastbound intermodal train as it makes its way down the hill past the station. I guess you can consider this a train race because coming up on the intermodal train's tail was a Norfolk Southern eastbound tanker train on the other track next to it, led by an EMD SD70 ACC rebuild and an EMD SD70 Ace. Around 9:45, 10 o'clock a.m., the Amtrak Pennsylvania makes its way through to the station heading eastbound. This is the eastbound run of the same train we saw the previous night. After the Amtrak Pennsylvanian left the Amtrak station, we did too, and then we find ourselves in Galizten, Pennsylvania, home of the famous Galizten Tunnels, where the NS Pittsburgh line passes right through town, and right underneath the mountains. We only stayed here for about an hour because we still had to make the trip home, and there were a couple other places we wanted to visit before we left Pennsylvania. The first train we saw here at Galizten was a Norfolk Southern eastbound mixed freight train as it negotiates the curve and the hill before it enters the tunnels, and it had quite the lash-up, if you ask me, with an SD70 ACC leading the way. Since we have some time before the next train moves through Galizten, let's take a look at the 5th unit on this mixed freight train, NS 6349, an EMD rebuilt SD40E, which was built in 1983 as Conrail SD50 number 6702. Then in 1999, when CSX and NS split up Conrail, Norfolk Southern acquired 6702 and renumbered it to 5401. Then in March of 2013, it was rebuilt into an SD40E, specifically to be a helper unit on the NS Pittsburgh line, which was the entire purpose of the SD40E rebuilding program. Now in 2020, since some of the SD70 ACU rebuilds have gotten HelperLink, they are now the new faces of the Pittsburgh line, specifically in helper service, which dispersed all the SD40Es across the system in local train service. So I kind of find it ironic that an SD40E is trailing on this mixed freight train, and it was the only one we saw throughout this entire trip. A little while later, a Norfolk Southern westbound intermodal train makes its way through Galizten coming out of the tunnel. And I gotta say, watching a train come out of this tunnel was pretty cool, if you ask me. After that intermodal train cleared, we then moved on, and then we find ourselves in Cresson, Pennsylvania, on a small wooden platform to bring you up to the track so you can watch the trains and get a decent view of them. Also staged up here at Cresson were a crap ton of Norfolk Southern SD70 ACUs, most of them 7334, 36, 37, and 38 are from the 10-unit purchase in 2016 from CIT and Indiana Railroad, and the 7339 was actually 7314 originally, and for reasons unknown, it was renumbered to 7339, and if anyone does know why it was renumbered, feel free to drop a comment down below. I would also like to point out that these are not the helper-equipped SD70 ACUs, but there are two differences between the regular ones and the HelperLink ones. As you see here on the HelperLink ones, the ditch lights are mounted below the walkway on the front, and there's a HelperLink box of where the ditch lights used to be. And on the 7339, for instance, the ditch lights are on the deck, and there's no HelperLink box. So basically, those are the two main differences between the regular ACUs and the HelperLink SD70 ACUs. Anyways, let's move on, shall we? When we got to Cresson, there was already a green signal, and it was for this Norfolk Southern eastbound mixed freight train led by an SD70 Ace, with a friendly crew aboard. After the mixed freight train cleared, a helper set made their way west, with another friendly crew aboard as well. After a fiasco at a nearby gas station because of a misplaced wallet, which was not mine, we went back to Cresson, and we got 2 more trains as a result. The first one that came up was a Norfolk Southern westbound intermodal train with a heck of a lot of engines on it, with another friendly crew aboard and a brand new unit on it as well. The final train we would see at Cresson, and in Pennsylvania in general, was a Norfolk Southern eastbound intermodal train, led by an AC-44C6M rebuild and an SD-70 Ace. After leaving Cresson, we find ourselves back at Ohio, at Wheeling Lake Erie's Bertain Rail Yard. We wouldn't usually come here because, well, we were on our way home, but there was a very good reason why we stopped here. The reason why we stopped was this pair of locomotives right here. Don't worry, we'll worry about 102 here in just a second, but the main focus was Wheeling and Lake Erie 303, an EMD rebuilt GP40-3, which was built in 1969 for the Denver Rio Grande Western Railroad as 3085. Then in 2001, Wheeling and Lake Erie acquired 3085 and renumbered it to 303. Then it was upgraded with Dash 3 electronics in 2005. In 2020, as you can see here, it still wears its Rio Grande paint, which makes it an original painted unit. So it was my first locomotive of seeing original paint, not as a heritage unit, but as it is. Behind 303 was also a special unit, Wheeling and Lake Erie 102, an EMD rebuilt GP35-3, which was built in 1965 for the Southern Railway as 2713. Then in 1982, when Norfolk Southern was formed, it inherited its locomotives from the N&W and the Southern Railway, and 2713 was one of them. Then it was painted in Norfolk Southern's paint scheme and kept its number 2713. Then in 1990, Wheeling and Lake Erie acquired 2713 and renumbered it to 102. Then in 2000, it was rebuilt into a GP35-3, and during the rebuilding program, it received the Operation Lifesaver Railroad Crossing graphics, which it still wears to this day, and also retains its high short hood, which makes it also a pretty good catch. There were also several other locomotives in the yard as well, including ABC Railway 4005, another rebuilt EMD GP40-3, which was built in 1970 for the Crip Railroad as 4700. Then it later served for Missouri Pacific, Union Pacific as 631, and then the Dakota, Minnesota, and Eastern Railroad as 4005. And then in 2020, it was rebuilt into a GP40-3 after being acquired by the Wheeling and Lake Erie in 2019. It was lettered for the Akron, Barbertown, and Cluster Railroad, which is a subsidiary of Wheeling and Lake Erie. And I also thought this locomotive was a pretty good catch. We also see a pair of Wheeling and Lake Erie EMD SD40-2s, number 7013 and 6991. 7013 was originally built in 1975 for the Missouri Pacific Railroad as 3168. Then it later served for the Union Pacific, Gaddix, and other leasing companies until 2014 when it was acquired by the Wheeling and Lake Erie Railroad and was renumbered to 6389. Then in 2015, it was upgraded with positive train control and was renumbered to 7013, and currently wears Wheeling and Lake Erie's Tiger Stripe paint scheme, which is reminiscent of the Denver Rio Grande and Western paint. The other SD40-2, 6991, was originally built in 1970 for the Grand Trunk Western Railroad as 5929, and was also built as a straight SD40. Then it later served for GCFX and CITX as 3068. Then in 2015, Wheeling and Lake Erie acquired 3068 and renumbered it to 6991. And as you can see here in 2020, it still wears its FURX paint scheme, or FERX as I like to call it. So I thought these were pretty good catches, because it's the first time for me seeing Wheeling and Lake Erie, and I got to see 5 good locomotives at the same spot. After witnessing my first Wheeling and Lake Erie trains, this will now end our trip to Altoona, Pennsylvania. And I gotta say, this was one fun trip, that's for sure, and it's definitely a place I want to revisit in the future. And by the way, I'm sorry if this video is too long for you, but that's just because I got to see a lot of good stuff in multiple different places, and I wanted to put it in as one video so you wouldn't miss anything. Anyways, hit the like button down below, leave a comment and tell me what you think of it, subscribe to my channel, and tap the bell button to be notified when I get a new video out. This is All Ohio Rail Fan, signing out.